Hello and welcome to my spoiler talk for Shadows of the Colossus. This is the place where we can talk about anything and everything about the game that we'll talk about, and you know what it is? It is Shadow of the Colossus. So, like I said, nothing is off limits. There will be spoilers galore, and if you are here to say, oh, I wanted to find a non-spoiler talk about this game, go ahead and check out my spoiler-free review of Shadow Colossus on the channel Freeze Frame Rate. I will have a link on the video description below if you want to check out. So let's get started right away. We got a lot to talk about. So here we go. The truth. The thing that we had been questioning throughout the entire game, where it just never got answered. You just got thrown into this situation where you just had this sword all of a sudden. You were coming up on this temple with the woman, and you didn't know who she was and what she meant to you, but you really progressively found out through the game of how much she meant to you. But the fact that when you get to the end and you discover what the truth is, that you stole the sword and it was forbidden to do so, and that you stole her body from her father, who must have been the headmaster of their village or whatever cult or group they were a part of. And just after you think about it, it's like, it probably made a lot of sense. Like, he's willing to do anything and anything for the one he loves. And I think even though not knowing this information, like I said in my spoiler-free review, you could tell by fighting the 16 Colossi that he was willing to do what it takes to save her, that he truly did love her. And without saying a word about how much he loves her, you can just tell by what he is going through, you as the player is going through, to do what it takes to save her. God, that's real love right there. But that just it made total sense that he was just willing to do anything. And when they were revealing all this information, I was like, wow. But at the same time, I'm like, not surprised. He would have done quite a thing. But let's get to the real big thing, is when you transform what I'm calling the 17th Colossi, because I'm not sure if it was a Colossi or wasn't a Colossi. I have no idea. Part of it, no context, which is part of my one of the things I'm so frustrated about the game. But I love the world, so I just want to know more. But anyways, tangent. You got killed, and then somehow you turn into a giant colossi ghost creature thing, and you know what? Controlling it was very, very cool. Controlling it was a surprise. I didn't expect it. I thought it was still going to continue in the cutscene, but no, you were gonna go and stomp on them and throw your fists on them, and I think it was just it was super satisfying, because you fought these, and you kind of think throughout the time, you're like, I wonder how difficult it'd be if you could be able to control one. Like, that would be so cool if you could do that. Here you go, you are one, so you get to control one. And it just, that's the other part. It was beautiful that he transformed into this complex creature, but yet it was so complex. And the other part that I struggle with is that the fact that I don't know what's going on, and that's the other part. I think I would love to know how the creatures came to be. I don't know if that's how they become the Colossi, or how in the world these Colossi, but like I said in my spoiler-free review, I would have appreciated more context on things around me, whether that was kind of similar to like Bloodborne, where if you go around and you read things, you read documents, those kinds of things, it sets up the world. And then you finally, maybe on a tablet, and after you read a couple different stone tablets, that you understand on how the creatures came to be, how the Colossi came to be. I just feel that it just would add more dimension, and I want to know. I want to know what makes you a Colossi, and if that was really a Colossi, or if that wasn't a Colossi. That's even the more confusing part. I'm like, I don't know what I was at that time, but I felt like I was a Colossi. I could have been, maybe just not in full form or something like that. Who knows? But it all leads to a consequence, and I think it happens when that spell gets put upon you, that basically he granted by raising the one back from the dead, the one he loved, but you turned into a baby, which was I felt was so interesting, because throughout the time they never said that the only wish, and it's kind of trickery. It's kind of like in old story tales where they are going to give you your wish, but they don't tell you everything about it, and they don't tell you what consequences could happen from granting that wish. And for him, he would have probably taken that consequences if that eventually he could come back as an adult and be with his love. But it was so interesting, and it showed that everything you do has consequence, and that maybe the father knew that even though you're going to obey this demon and do what he wants you to do, or I don't know what the creature was, the shadow creature, but whatever it was, doing that, he probably knew there was going to be a consequence to him. And so maybe he was trying to save him from that, being like, I don't care if you bring my daughter back. There's something bad's going to happen to you, and I don't want that on me, or something like that. I don't know. But you get back with your love. But the only part of it I like left questioning was like, what are you going to do? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I just, it made sense for him and his choice, but I wish I had a little more context. But at the same time, like I said, old fairy tales, it happens all the time where things aren't told to you straight out and you get a consequence in the action. So it was a very good surprise, I would have to say. And one of the even more surprising things with the ending, with everything that was happening, and like I said, it all happens in like a 15-minute chunk right at the end. It's real quick. It's something you just don't expect at all. But without much expectation, unfortunately, with all those surprises, it kind of loses its magic a little bit on you. It loses its momentum on you. Yes, you were building to this giant moment, but we'll talk about the gradual storytelling a little bit later, but it kind of just loses impact and its magic on you a little bit. But Aggro lived. What? Now, I don't know what the heck was going on. He or she, like, I give them credit. First off, I will give them credit. They had done an amazing job for you to feel for this character, and they do it very smartly. They do it very smartly because they have you speak its name and only its name. And so you learn to have a connection with Aggro, and the way he speaks to Aggro is with emotion. And so you are emotionally attached to that character as a horse. And so when it sacrifices itself for you, it is quite a touching moment. But then he lived. Oh, I just wish he didn't. He can't, like, oh, God, I was a little frustrated because, you know, like, there's so many problems with it. I wish he just not lived. I wish he just stayed dead because it made a better impact. Because here he comes out, survived on a hobbled hoof, like one hobbled leg. He dropped so high from the ceiling into the water. How in the world does he only survive with a hobbled foot? Like, really? Like, it just, it took me out of the moment for a second, because I was like, yeah, at first I was like, yes, he lived, but then I'm like, he only survived on a hobbled foot. And then how much time passed between battling that lost Colossi and everything that happened in that 15-minute chunk? Because how in the world did Aggro get all the way from that area and probably had to travel a farther distance because, you know, like, he fell from a fall height. There probably wasn't a clear path from where the water was that would lead back to the mainland areas to be able to travel in the map and be able to get back to the temple. Like, how does that all happen? Like, it leaves you with barely any context, and you're just like, I like you're here, but what? I don't get it. I didn't get it. And it just didn't made me believe that it really happened. And just, one of the only moments where I'm like, what is going on? Now, with that question, with all the questioning I had throughout with what I have to say, like, with this end, now what? Like, the woman's alive, that's great. Like, he accomplished his goal, but he is now a baby with a hobbled horse. And they're way out in this land that is destroyed. Now what? Like, it's interesting, yet I feel like everything they did for nothing, because now they are stuck here. And I don't know if that the land's pretty barren. Like, there is some wildlife, but there's only certain section of the map that's accustomed to wildlife, and they're not accustomed to get hunted, and they need to feed a baby, they need to feed a horse, and they need to feed a woman. Like, how are they going to do this? Now they have plenty of fresh water, that's good, but it just leaves them on a weird note. And the other part is that what happened to the land? Like, is the land still cursed? Are the Colossi back in their things because the evil shadow got hidden again? Did the Colossi come back? If that's the case, then they have to deal with Colossi. Like, it just it leaves you on a weird note. And I like this entire game. It just leads you in weird spots, and it's again, no context, so it's really hard just to tell of what's gonna happen. Like, I do care. I really am interested to see what happens with those characters, but they probably will never explore it because it's like a separate story. But now, the one thing that I think would have helped overall with this game, with the storytelling, with kind of context, and made you feel like everything was worth it, because in this game, like I said in the non-spoiler review, is that a lot of this game has to do with you just taking down the 16 Colossi. So that is the motivator. And if after so many Colossi, if you're not still motivated, there's nothing else to really keep you going. There is a slight scene, I didn't research which Colossi happens after, but there's a couple mini scenes where you see galloping horses, and so you're like, well, who are they? I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough to do that. I wish that maybe they did things like maybe recalled flashbacks about learning how she died, or recalling flashbacks of him taking the sword, or recalling flashbacks of him and her together. When I say him, the main character and the woman he's trying to save. I wish there could have been so many things to help bring in the character more. Yes, do you get as much impact with loving that character? Like I said, it does a really good job of that. I think for context and more story points, to help build to the moment that really happens at the end, knowing that, yes, is he doing what he can to save her, but there are consequences. He left when he left his land or wherever he was from to come to this area to take on the Colossi to save her. Knowing that would have probably in flashbacks or something like that would have gave better incentive and more story points for people that can need more than just the Colossi to be able to have a motivator to continue playing the game. And I think that is a motivator that you can give them. So that's the only big piece of feedback I really would give for the game, that I think they really could have done a lot better to help people with the game. But we're going to get to the cool list. I'm going to go over my top 3 Colossi that I really enjoyed and why. And there's a number of reasons, and there are so many to choose from, but I just wanted to keep it to 3, kind of a little bit short. And then I had one other small nitpick I did want to talk about near the end here. So first of all, my 1 and my 3, and they're not in any particular order, Hydrus. I really liked Hydrus. Now, the reason why I did like Hydrus was because it offered a cool new way of using the grip mechanic, a cool new way of attacking a Colossi by going under the water. And I think that you battled so much on land. Yes, you battled in water, but you mostly battled in the air. You battled on land. And so adding the element of water was kind of new. And like what I mentioned in my non-spoiler review, when battling the Colossi, they really teach you mechanics of the game and understanding how to swim and how deep you can swim. Those kinds of things do come in handy when you are exploring the world and trying to find nooks and crannies and secret passages and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that the Colossi teach you that is so great. I think that's a really good mechanic of showing rather than telling, and in doing it in a smart way that people pick up on it, not just in the past where it's an example I could say with Breath of the Wild. I think one of my biggest issues with that game is that it doesn't help explain context on how to use different things, and this game really does a really good job of that. Where I, like example, cooking, that mechanic never really gets explained very well, and so you don't understand how important that mechanic is to the game. Where here in Shadow of the Colossus, you understand swimming is an important mechanic because you have to use it in the battle, and then you go, oh, I can swim. Oh, I can go underwater. Oh, this is how far I can go under. Oh, maybe I should check out these areas now. That's how you do it. That's how you explain context with certain things, with certain mechanics in a game, and that's how people understand it, and then you do well with it. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. You do it. So I like it. You go from the skies, you've been on land all the time. So adding the water was kind of cool. Having the contrast of lightning and water together was a really interesting way of doing it. And I think because elemental water and lightning and electricity don't go well together, they'll shock you in the water. The fact that this mythical beast doesn't shock the whole lake when using its lightning is really cool. Now, I'm going to pronounce these wrong. I apologize ahead of time. It's Gaius. Now, I finally realized how powerful the Colossi could be and how striking the ground can make the whole ground shake. It really made me realize when fighting this one of how powerful these creatures were, and it just was a mind blower because it was so early. I think he's only like the fourth Colossi, where when he's hitting that ground, your body is shaking. You are losing your balance. So it's so great. I think it's so great to add that element to really just show how powerful they can be. And I think that just really takes your breath away. I'm truly amazed by those moments. And also, my other favorite part was running up his weapon. So when he does stab the ground and then you're running up to get onto him, that's so clever, so good, and it's so rewarding. Difficult sometimes, because when you go up it and then it lifts up, and for me, I was trying to run up it the whole time, and maybe I should have just hung on the edge and waited for him to lift the thing up and then shimmy over or something like that. But I kept falling a few times, so it was a little bit difficult, but it made me feel like a warrior, just elusive and strong. So I really liked that a lot. And then the final one that I really liked, and this one, I know I said I didn't mark them in any particular order, but I will say this one is my favorite overall. And that one is, I want to say it's Phalanx. And I think that one's really cool because it combines so many elements together. It combines the horse. It combines shooting arrows. It combines jumping off the horse in motion, hanging while you're upside down. It shows off all the mechanics that involve in this game. Almost every single one except for swimming. It involves every single mechanic. So by the time I was done with that one, I really felt like I was a real warrior. That based off how I was fighting, I was not the best fighter, but I truly felt like I was a warrior winning the fight. That I was doing what it took to win the fight, to save the one I love. It was just like when you're in the water, how refreshing that is. Get it? Refreshing. Anyways, just like riding in the water, riding in the air, I have to say, riding in the air felt so good. You know, they got the sound right with it. They got the wind right with it, the right resistance. And then when like it flips upside down and you're hanging, it's so impressive. I was just at awe in the moment, and just made me feel strong and powerful, and how much technique it took you to do it right. That's what really was important. Now I do have one big thing that bugged me so much. You know, the other ones were so little, nitpicky, just little ones. This one is that last boss. The last boss was very interesting because I got stuck, and I never got stuck on any other Colossi. I got stuck on this one, and it got to it was the point where you were it wasn't with when he was throwing fire rocks at you. It wasn't when you were climbing up him. Kinda. It was to the point when you got to his hands and you stab the hand, he flips it over, you jump to the other hand, and I couldn't figure out how to get from that hand to like a shoulder or to a shoulder. I just couldn't figure it out. I was stuck. I kept falling down. I had to re-climb up the entire guy all over again, which doesn't take, it takes a while because you have to hop over different types of areas, shimmy, those kinds of stuff. So it wasn't like a very easy thing to do. And so I was a little frustrating. But basically I didn't understand that I had to shoot the arrow at him at a certain area, but he wasn't like, it was tricky to tell that you had to do that because he was only able to let you stand on him for such a short amount of time that it didn't allow you to kind of realize, oh, I can shoot him with my arrow here, and that's what I'm supposed to do to move the other arm towards me. you don't realize that because it doesn't help you at all with that. And the even worse part was there was no hint. So I think I never used any of the, I've gotten one of the hints when I played the entire game. And I think it was the one right before that boss. I had a hint that was told to me every time, and I finally figured it out what I was supposed to do. And I figured it out without the hint because I didn't understand the hint for some reason. Didn't understand what the hint meant. But anyways, it didn't give me any kind of hint when I was on his hands of like how to, any kind of hint, anything. It was all up to me. And yes, it made me feel really great after figuring it out, but it wasn't like a, yes, I figured it out. It was a, God, finally I figured it out. I was so confused why I couldn't figure it out for the longest time. So finally, my final remarks on this game overall, like this, even though this was a remake, it being made almost over a decade ago, after the original one came out. I mean, it's been through so many remasters. I think it's been through 2 remasters since it came out, because I think there's been 1 remaster for the PS3 and the PS4, and then they do this remake. It really shows that this game still holds up to other games. And it's just so surprising to see that, especially a game from the PS2 era. Usually games that are in the older generation, some of them do hold up, and it's a dime a dozen. It's not all of them do hold up to the time, but this one did. This one did really, really well. And I think even looking at it, even with the updates, it makes it even more accessible for every single person. It makes it even better. And I think overall, even though this game came out almost a decade ago, it still holds up. And I think it still competes with every other game that came out this year, every other game that came out with last year, and shows how much I'm surprised people have not taken some aspects of this game and put it into another game. And I wish they took some of these great aspects and put it into another game. So that is my spoiler talk for Shadow of the Colossus. Now, what did you think of the game? And that, let me know in the comments below. Know that there is nothing that is off limits, so you can talk about anything. If I didn't, let me know your favorite Colossi, or how'd you feel about the different story points, and how could they improve the story, or unless you felt like it was a perfect story. Tell me about it. Tell me what you think about it. So if you like this, check out all my other videos on freeze frame rate. You can give them a like, share them with your friends, and if you want to keep up with the content that I'm releasing here on freeze frame rate, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. My name is, and I'm signing off.